Tea time. Welcome everybody! Souldin of the Grin brothers here, and it's time for another episode of Tea Time. And oh boy, it has been a long time since I've done a regular standalone tea time like this. I've finally gone through all the Christmas teas, and this isn't a Nintendo Direct tea time, it isn't a Sony State of Play tea time, a Microsoft for some sort of video, whatever video thing Microsoft does, I think it's Play Xbox or something like that, or a E3 related tea time. This is just a normal sit down, have a new tea time of 2019. Because of all pretty much all the other ones I've been having have been either because of a Nintendo Direct or something I've been watching, or because they were the Christmas tea times, all from the end of 2018. But this is a fresh, brand new tea time. And with it, for today's tea time, we have Chocolate Super Berry Bush. That's what I shall be... Sorry, Bush. Whoops, I've spelled that wrong in my book. I've just checked. It's Burst. Chocolate Super Berry Burst. Well, that's a great start to tea times of 2019, isn't it? It's a organic rooibos herbal tea. Brew time is 5 to 6 minutes. I've brewed it here for 5 because I'm having it without milk. Brands is the English Tea Shop. And information on it, it's an organic tea packed with flavour. This chocolate, licorice and vanilla flavoured tea will dance on your palate alongside sprinklings of superfruits. So I'll have to correct that later to change to burst instead of bush. And let's move the book aside. This will be a bit more of a relaxed tea time. I've got the door open. It's during the day, so Zero, my cat, may come and intervene. Vanilla may bark, stuff like that. I'll just try and edit out such problems, but I'm going to try and take a more relaxed approach. I'm a more relaxed, calmer person now. And the fact that with editing tools, I can just, calm up. Cut any interruptions if need be. Anyway, for today's tea time, I figured I've built up a few topics, about 27 or so topics to talk about for tea times. But I figured, and I had a bit negative one to talk about, but you know what? I'm going to start my return to tea times of actually recording them without something in front of me, aside from the laptop, of course, with something more positive. And that is one that I've actually been thinking of doing for a while. I've had compiled for a while, and that is Top 6 N64 games. My favourite N64 games. I may mention some more as honourable mentions, but otherwise this is going to be talking about my favourite N64 games, mainly this focus on the 6 of them. And, I grew up with N64 quite early on, because, I was born in 1993, the N64 came out in 1997 in the UK and such. So there wasn't a long period. There was I have a kind of a weird generation split in terms of my childhood. It's like a odd mix of SNES. I was too young to really explore the Amiga, the SNES, and the Mega Drive, but because of older brothers, I had those from a really early age. But technically, my childhood should really be stuff like the N64 and PlayStation. But so as such, I've experienced both. Quite lucky for me, I ended up experiencing both within my childhood. A good mixture of these generations of Gen 3 and Gen 4. And, I have a lot of fun memories of the N64, and looking at actually a surprisingly diverse roster of games I've selected here. I'm surprised at how genre savvy I was. Admittedly, one of my favourite genres, the RPG genre, is almost entirely absent on the N64. And by that, I mean the turn-based RPG genre. There's 6 games, I think. And surprisingly, I never actually played many of the fighting games. I got into fighting games with Tekken 2, but didn't really play many of them. So there's not a huge amount of those on the list. So it's a much more diverse than I was expecting. In any case, I've let the title be up on the screen for long enough. Now let's replace it with a slap on number 6. My 6th favourite N64 game is Mystical Ninja Gomen. Well, I think it's Mystical Ninja starring Gomen, but no one ever remembers the starring part. Seriously, this is it was a very Zelda-esque game, but interesting enough, before Zelda. It's an third-person action RPG starring Gomen, as well as his friends Ebi Misaru, I could never get that name right. Ebi Misaru, I believe it is. I think it's Yai the ninja. She can turn into a mermaid. Ebi Misaru can shrink. Gomen fights with a smoking pipe, which gets a chain, which allows it to extend. And he can basically go Super Saiyan, and I believe for one of his power-ups, and he could go invisible at one point. And then it's, I think, Sasuke the ninja. I'll correct myself up on screen. And you get to play as 4 different characters, switching between them in a Zelda-esque styled world with a bit more emphasis on platforming. And I say Zelda-esque style, I mean in terms of it's an action RPG. It's where you get sort of items and powers to be able to solve puzzles and effectively dungeon areas. But there is quite a bit more focus on platforming. One of your earliest things is to climb a giant mountain, for instance. as well as the fact that the setting of the game is feudal Japan sort of thing. Gomen is based off a historical Japanese figure, who is often compared to Robin Hood, and there's a lot of really cool moments in it. It's got a unique styling to it. Like, it doesn't take itself too seriously. The villains to it are just bizarre in a creepy but humorous way, and quite early on, you just get this giant mecha fight with a whole Sentai theme as you pilot a giant mecha shaped like Gomen, and is a very varied world, and it explores that well. It's a very Japanese game. That's a good way to put it. Like, it's very Japanese in both its aesthetic as well as its tone. And it was a great way to kind of be introduced to that kind of culture of gaming, in a sense, and that culture of sort of thing. Because it's such a absurd light, but a very cheerful light to it. But I remember having a lot of fun, but never completed it, though, because our memory pack broke, and you needed a memory pack to get through the whole game. Remember this one section we got stuck at when we did have the memory pack, and then our memory pack broke. But hopefully one day we'll get through the entire thing. We as in my family, because I had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, Mystical Ninja Gomen, Mystical Ninja starring Gomen, is my 6th favourite N64 game. Moving on then to number 5, and this is kind of a funny pan with a lot of the games I ended up enjoying a lot on the N64. I remember listing quite a few here. I've broken down to 6, but I had like 12 before. But a lot of my favourite games on the N64 are games that I don't actually have possession of. Like, this one I remember borrowing from a friend. I remember completing it, and I loved it. Although, well, a little bit hazy on whether I completed it myself. I was back in the tender age of, 8 to 6, or even younger perhaps. So perhaps one of my older brothers ended up actually completing it for me. I remember I used to, whenever I get to the final boss battle, pass it to them. But my 5th favourite N64 game is Bomberman 64. It's, I loved Mega Bomberman on the, I believe it's called Mega Bomberman on like the SNES and such, but Mega Bomberman on the Sega Mega Drive. I loved that to bits, and Bomberman 64 was a great transition to the N64. Both in the fact that multiplayer is still fun, but not the main focus. It actually has a single player as a big focus, and it's a really enjoyable single player campaign, solving puzzles and sort of platform sections without jumping per se. You'd said use the bombs to end up helping you cross gaps and such. And one thing I really remember about Bomberman 64 is I was really inspired by its style. I used to have a created character based rather heavily off the mysterious figure within Bomberman 64. Okay, I'll just spoil it straight away. There's this like jet-like character who turns out to be the main villain of the game. If you get like the secret ending sort of thing, the true ending, you fight him as the final boss sort of thing. And that sort of style, as well as a lot of the Bomberman character styles, inspired a lot of my some of the characters I'd make. I'd used to imagine like the top of the car would come off and form into like a jet sort of thing, transform into a robot, and a lot of the sort of character designs I was thinking of, and particularly in my own art style with Miiverse sort of drawings, is quite a bit inspired Bomberman, and I feel Bomberman 64 is mainly where I got that attachment to. Like I said, it's not a game I owned. I remember I played it mainly for borrowing. I'm fairly sure I didn't complete it myself, but I got near to the end, and it was one of my brothers who probably ended up completing it for me. I do remember seeing that final boss battle, though. That is definitely something I have experienced. Sitting in front of the TV, watching that final boss be beaten, and that big twist about, oh no, he's actually evil. I mean, it was obvious all along, really, but, for the age, it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. But 64, really fun game. I have been tempted to download it off the Wii U eShop to see maybe even do a Grin Brothers playthrough of it. Go back down memory lane to experience this game, which sadly I don't own a copy of myself for the N64. And Rafi has never seen it at all or experienced it, so I think that'd be a lot of fun. I also remember the multiplayer mode. You could add costumes to them, and I remember really liking adding the kitty costume to Bomberman and playing as the kitty Bomberman as it were. But yeah, that's my 5th favourite N64 game. Moving now on to number 4, and those of you who know what character I most want in Super Smash Bros. Won't be too surprised by this, because this is I guess you could say spiritual successor to a character I want in Smash Bros, sort of, as it were. My 4th favourite N64 game is Pokemon Puzzle League, the only Puzzle League game I've had a long and lengthy experience with. admittedly. Like, as much as I love Lip, the true sort of star of the Panel de Pon series, and the main character of the Puzzle League series, I of course am not Japanese, and I don't like do any of those PC downloads or imports, so I've never actually played the original Panel de Pon games or any of the Puzzle League games starring Lip. But I remember playing I've played a lot of Pokemon Puzzle League, and I've had a lot of fun with Pokemon Puzzle League. It was one of the last N64 games I got, and despite not being very good at puzzle games, for instance, in the Team Rocket side quest mode, where Ashes, Bulbasaur, and Squirrel get kidnapped by Jesse and James and Meowth, I have never gone past any of the 3D puzzle sections. I've gone through the hard mode of the main campaign. But I'd never fought Mewtwo at all. I can definitely remember never having fought Mewtwo. And I never could do any of the 3D sections. But I did a lot of the puzzle sections. I played through the campaign a lot of times. It's just a fun, simple puzzle game with a lot of challenge to it that I could easily pick up and grasp. And it's one of the puzzle games I'm somewhat slightly better at. It's not columns where I'm amazing at columns, frankly. Although, to be fair, it's kind of like... columns is only one of the closest games it is to. But yeah, basically... blocks rise up from the ground. You use your little cursor, 2-block cursor, to switch the blocks around and to try to form matching pairs of 3 or more to get rid of them. With higher combos, you can create garbage blocks to throw down onto your opponent and stuff like that. A typical sort of puzzle game. Anyone who's played any entry in the Puzzle League series will know what I'm talking about, be it Panel de Pon, be it the Kirby one. I've heard they had a Kirby one? No. Panel de Pon, the SNES. There was the Yoshi one. Which is a reskin of Panel de Pon, the Pokemon Puzzle League, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge for the Game Boy Color, like the only Gen 2 spin-off. I also own that, but never really played too much of it. The Puzzle League game on the Puzzle League is part of the Animal Crossing New Leaf download. You probably will know what it plays like from that. It's easily sort of visible sort of thing. But yeah, I absolutely loved Pokemon Puzzle League. I was, of course, a big fan of the Pokemon anime, and it's really cool they have unique cutscenes and sort of being able to fight with them. I like, even though it makes no difference choosing which Pokemon I use, and the cast is pretty cool being able to play as certain characters and each of the gym leaders in the multiplayer mode. And, again, it makes little to no difference, but it's just cool being able to say, I played as Eric this fight, or I played as Gary in this sort of fight, sort of thing. So then, moving on to number 3. And you know how I said, I haven't played many flying games on the N64? Though there are certainly plenty that I've seen that I'd think, if I saw that on a garage sale or, in the market, I would buy that. Well, number 3 is a fine game, and one that many people have experienced. Super Smash Bros. The original N64 game may have been light on content, but it introduced the world to an amazing gameplay system, and Super Smash Bros. Remains one of my my third favourite N64 game. One, take into consideration the time. Sure, the other Smash Bros. Games have more content and such, and are, in turn, better to a lot of degrees, but I'm taking into a perspective of the time frame and comparing it to the N64 games, and Super Smash Bros. Just had such... And in a sense... The fact that it's more lacking in content, weirdly enough, is a positive to it. It's a lot simpler, a lot more straightforward, and in a sense a lot less cluttered. Like, the core gameplay is still really strong. It's not like, say, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where the stage houses are a bit too powerful, and items are a bit too powerful, so you don't want to turn them off. It's all perfectly balanced. The home run's bat's, powerful, but it's got its flaws, etc., etc. The stages, they have their gimmicks, but they don't intervene too much, sort of thing. It's because there's less to it, weirdly enough, is far better balanced as a result. I mean, I think if you get into a pro method of thinking about it, it isn't that balanced. You can easily cheese certain things. But in terms of casual gameplay, it felt a lot more fair overall across the border. But in general, there's also a lot of things, again, aside from the usual aspects of Super Smash Bros., it's really fun, unique gameplay style, which have carried over to other games. Its unique roster, its introduction to characters I never knew about. Again, because the SNES kind of passed me by quite quickly. I, of course, never knew of Samus, for instance. Never knew of Captain Falcon. Never knew of Nez. I mean, particularly I didn't know of Nez. PAL Regions never got Earthbound until 2013, 2014. We got it with the Wii U. But another aspect I like is the aesthetic to it. Like, in terms of all the other Smash Bros. Games, I think it has one of the best aesthetics, because instead of a trophy theme, it goes with a toy theme, which makes far more sense, particularly with Master Hand as the final fight. I love the box art, like that unique, cute, cartoony box art is so much more charming than what you get nowadays with the more serious sort of box art. The serious box art is cool, but, it's just kind of the in-game model sort of thing. It was much cooler the sort of cartoony style they went with before for the box art, because, it was different sort of thing. And let's see, other things. Well, I loved Metal Mario's fight, partly because the music and stage were awesome. I was annoyed that you couldn't fight that in single player. And, you know, the break the target was really well done in it, and board the platforms and all that. And yeah, it's just an absolute joy to play, and I've had so many fun multiplayer sessions with it. That said, it is also another one of those games that I do not have possession of, because our N64 copy we lent to a friend and then they moved, and we've never since owned a copy of Super Smash Bros. For the N64. Slightly problematic. Any case, before I go on to my number 2 and number 1, and potentially honourable mentions, I'm going to now try out this tea. The oh, whoops! I threw away all the boxes. Hold on, let me just. The chocolate super berry burst tea, not bush. I'll try that. Hopefully, it should have cooled down enough. So let's see. Oh. That was rather interesting. And I was going to say it's much more berry. There's very little other than berry at first. But then a very unique sweet taste at the very end on the tip of my tongue. Probably could tell when that hit. Berry going to the back of the throat. Oh, my tip of the thing's tingling. Like it's being sprinkled in sugar. That must be the chocolate and licorice hint. It's not as strong. Oh, no, it's dancing on the tongue. I'm thinking somebody got caught in my mustache. Oh, wow, that really dances along the tongue. Yeah, they aren't kidding about it spreading across the palate. Just kind of... Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Whoa. It's not the greatest tasting tea I've had, but it's kind of almost amusing how the taste travels along the mouth. You get the berry tea, it immediately jumps to like the back of your throat. Then you get the sweet tingle of the chocolate and the licorice on the tip of your tongue. And then if you move your mouth side to side, the tastes just pop up all along your tongue. It is that thing mentioned about the taste dancing on your palate sort of thing. And oh my gosh, it does dance. Wow, that's just fascinating to drink. It's entertainment in of itself. Very shallow entertainment, but entertainment. Yeah. So chocolate super berry. The name of the tea again. I threw away the box again. Why? Very interesting tea. Enjoyable. Not super enjoyable, but enjoyable enough. Very fascinating how that works. Okay, so I guess I should mention my number 2 game before honourable mentions. My second favourite N64 game is Worms Armageddon. From what I heard of I think it was like Port Station or something, there was like a Port YouTube channel, I watched a few videos. From what I've heard, Worms Armageddon on the N64 is apparently the weakest of the versions, but I wouldn't know because it was an absolute delight to play. It had the advantage of 4-player co-op, 4-player multiplayer, because of course the N64 had the 4-player ports, and unlike the Sega Saturn or PlayStation, and it was easy to navigate, easy to control, everything just felt right. If you angle it right, it would work as you angled it. And it's just, Worms in general is just a really fun game. Simple but an absolute joy, particularly in the multiplayer sessions. To put it into perspective, the original Worms game, whilst a lot of fun, wasn't the greatest graphically, and its menus were a bit of a nightmare to go through. The Worms Armageddon on the N64 though, so much easier to navigate everything, so much easier to assemble a team and to personalise it with their languages and the names of each of the worms. The visuals were a lot better. Everything sort of popped out a lot more. And it truly sort of sold itself in a presentation matter. And again, and ease of navigation meant you could quickly sort of I could just boot it up right now and it'd take me just a few seconds to be able to get straight into a game because it's so easy to get all the settings just how you want them. The single player campaign, it wasn't exactly, there's no real sort of major story content, but it did have a good showcasing of areas and cool level designs and all that sort of thing. And of course there was always varied and awesome weapons to use. You get to choose a special weapon for your team. It's funny, I always went with the mole as my special weapon, even though I could never use it properly. I was terrible at using it, but I always went with the mole just because I thought it was cute. Raffi went with a flamethrower, he adored that to bits. Kiris went for the sort of three mad cows sort of blowing those up. I can't remember what Silverwing went with. I think he went with Holy Hand Grenade. Although Kira sometimes used that quite often as well. Holy Hand Grenade was an awesome one to use. Honestly, it's just really fun sort of, how do you put it? Tactical military game? It's like a military party game. I think that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to describe Worms Armageddon, and it's so amusing, even though you're kind of blowing up all the characters with bazookas and such. It has such an amusing tone and styling to it all, and it's just a ton of laughs, and even when you make mistakes, it's just funny. There's just so much humour to everything in it, and it is one of my favourite multiplayer experiences. The N64 was kind of king in that for multiplayer experiences. So before I go on to number one then, I'm going to take more sip of this tea because it's quite nice. I should mention some quick honourable mentions. I won't go into detail about each one, but I'm honestly surprised they didn't end up in my top 6 list. For instance, honourable mentions include Mario Party 3, another game I don't own, I never owned, but it is a Mario Party game that I got through to the very end. I had it, borrowed it from a friend, got through to the very end, and it was really cool that there was actually a boss battle at the end. Also, Daisy's appearance in it was awesome, how she just slapped Bowser aside and he went flying. That was always hilarious. Pokemon Stadium, absolute ton of fun. You could play your old Pokemon games on it. Again, really surprising it didn't make it into the top 6, but there's just so many good games I enjoyed on the N64. And I've been playing Pokemon Stadium quite a bit with my nephew in order to play the Pokemon Blue version with him, which is a really cool sort of experience. And then the other honourable mention is Jet Force Gemini, my favourite Rare game. This one was 7. This one was actually a tight choice between this and Mystical Ninja Gomen. But I'm not as keen on shooting games as most other genres, but it was so close, which shows how good I find it to be if a third-person shooter manages to get so high in my likings. You know, it was a really enjoyable game. Again, my favourite of the Rare games, really underappreciated classic game on the N64. Because people always focus on the Banjo-Kazooies and the Diddy Kong Racing and all that sort of thing, which are good in their own right, but nah, Jet Force Gemini for me is the peak Rare game for me. Okay, and then my final game on this list, my favourite N64 game, was, funny enough, my last N64 game, Paper Mario. The N64 had been dead for a couple of years. We were all playing the GameCube and such. Yeah, on the market stall, my mum found me a copy of Paper Mario, a game I'd seen in magazines and had longed for. By this point, I had played Final Fantasy IX and Breath of Fire 4 and fallen in love with the turn-based RPG genre. It was lacking on the N64, but Paper Mario was there as a shining beacon. I could never find it though. But eventually, Mum found me Paper Mario on the market store. I played it and I adored it. Whilst admittedly, I think I only played it, it was like only a year afterwards that Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door came out and it surpassed in every way. Still, the original Paper Mario is a truly delightful experience. It is one of my favourite video games of all time. Not just my favourite N64 game, it is easily like in the top 20 of favourite video games I've played. It is a truly phenomenal experience of a lot of charm and character. It's cool to explore the Mushroom Kingdom in an RPG world where you get to explore it with different party members who are Goombas and Koopas and Bob-ombs and all that. Cheep even, and there's even a cool reference to Panel de Pon with one of the characters in the Japanese version being named Lip, guarding a sort of flower sanctuary. Kind of wish they kept the Lip reference, but oh well, I guess people wouldn't have known about it. It's really funny, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reference of the Koopa brothers. That one villain always following you, and you get to fight him again, a Junior Trooper, and you get to fight him again and again and again, and he gets tougher and tougher and tougher. It's a simple to understand RPG, so it was really perfect for me at my age to sort of play. You learn to learn a lot of depth through it. The badge system allows for a ton of customization as well as which party members to use. There's lots of reason to explore, if not just for like cool little character moments, also to be able to get the power-ups for your partners. The Peach sections were a lot of fun. It was a nice little reward effect in a sense after each chapter to get this cool sort of like alternative gameplay section. After each chapter, the way the game's paced is brilliant, and again, the styling of the game is an absolute wonder. And again, it's a really engaging turn-based RPG and really straightforward to understand, but with a lot of depth to it, despite its simple nature. And because of its active nature in where you can enhance the strength of your hammer attacks or your jump attacks, it really keeps you engaged 24/7 with the game, with the combat. Even in match fights you're going to win easily, you still have to engage yourself in them to do so. And yeah, I absolutely loved Paper Mario on the N64. I mean, I loved both the original classic Paper Mario games. There's a reason why, for a lot of people, including myself, the downward spiral of the Paper Mario series is an absolute travesty. After all, it is the original Paper Mario. It was my favourite N64 game, and heck, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, spoilers I guess if I ever do it, was my favourite GameCube game. So I may like these two games just a little bit. So that's my top 6 favourite N64 games, and a few honourable mentions that were really close of making its way onto this list. I hope you enjoyed this tea time, and I would love to hear your thoughts on both my choices for my favourite N64 games and what N64 games are your favourite, those who've experienced the N64. Until next time though, cheerio!